You didn't see that. Hello, welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're making devilishly delicious deviled eggs, which are kind of like a twist on normal deviled eggs, but we're adding spooky horns and wings to make them more like devilly, just using like a red bell pepper to do that. Yeah, so it should be fun. Hopefully it works out well because the recipe does say it's a little difficult to do this, especially if you're using just a knife like I am. So these may or may not actually be devilish deviled eggs. So they might just be normal deviled eggs, which if that's the case, forget I mentioned anything about horns and wings and we'll just act like none of that ever happened. So why don't we run through the ingredients and then get into cooking. A ton of eggs, mayonnaise, mustard, sour cream, salt and pepper, and red bell pepper. The first step is going to be to take the 6 eggs, put it into water, and then we're going to turn on at medium heat, let it cook for 20 minutes, pull it from heat, and put into kind of a cold water bath to stop the cooking process. Now the next step is probably like the hardest step of all of them. It's going to be to peel the eggs, which the recipe does say to be careful because you want to keep the eggs kind of pristine. But I thought in my head, if you kind of mess it up and it gets a little like wonky looking, just be like, oh, they're mummy eggs or something. Like if there's like strips of them peel off, I don't know, zombie eggs. Both of those things kind of have stuff missing. And also people are shoving it into their mouth. They're not going to notice. It's not that big of a deal. However, I will use this moment in time to do some science because I do remember a way to peel eggs where you kind of like crack like a little bit off and then blow air into it, and then it's supposed to kind of, I mean, I feel like I've seen it where like it pops the egg out. I don't think that's gonna happen because I don't know, that just doesn't seem like that'll happen. I do believe that the idea of it kind of like the air separating the membrane and like shell from the egg itself, that might be viable. So I'm going to do a normal egg where I just kind of crack it and peel it. And then I'm going to do one where it's like crack, peel a little bit, blow into it, and then peel the rest and see if it's easier or the same as the other. And I will report back my findings on how that turns out. So let's peel some eggs. All right, now we need to cut the eggs in half, and then we're going to remove the yolks from the eggs and just kind of like put them in a bowl, because now we're getting into the like egg whites, which are kind of the dish, and then the deviled egg filling parts needing to be made, so those need to be separated. The recipe, which I need to quote it here, says cut them through the center, middle, not long ways. So to me, we're gonna pretend this is an egg. So, I mean, it kind of has an egg shape. So center middle to me would be like cutting it this way, which makes no sense because you got a pointy bit at the top. How is that gonna work? Versus long ways, which is this way, which is how I typically do it. So I'm gonna ignore that and just cut it long ways because that does that make sense to anybody? Like, why would you do that? Or am I just reading that wrong? I mean, like, long ways is definitely the long way. So not that way, it would have to be, I don't know. So I'm just gonna cut them in half the way that I wanna do it and take out those yolks. So you can do this, you can try the recipe way or not, and let me know how that goes for you, because that don't make no sense. Now the next step is going to be to mix the deviled egg filling. And the recipe does say to kind of put the egg yolks through a mesh strainer, which I'm not gonna do that because that's a pain to clean. I don't have a dishwasher, it's a long story, but I don't wanna clean a mesh strainer after doing that, so I'm not going to do that. You are welcome to give that a go. I'm assuming it just makes a smoother texture, which with deviled eggs, people are shoving that fully in their mouth. There's not really a whole lot of, I feel like, nuance of texture that's gonna be conveyed through. You'll realize some level, but there's a lot of other stuff going on. I'm not gonna worry about it, but if anybody at home gives it a go, let me know if I'm missing out on the greatest thing since sliced bread. But I don't think I'm gonna lose a whole lot of sleep over this one. So just kind of mixing everything, and this is gonna be the mayo or the mayonnaise. I don't know if there's technically a difference between them or if it's just me lazy and not wanting to say extra syllables. Sour cream, which is kind of a new contender to the deviled egg game for me. The mustard and then the salt and pepper. All of those are kind of to taste or to texture taste that you want. Follow your heart. That's all I gotta say. So the next step is going to be to make the horns and the wings out of the red bell pepper. Obviously the recipe says to use an X-Acto knife. I don't have one of those. Kind of story of this recipe is not having things or not using what the recipe tells you to. And so I'm just going to try it with a normal knife and hopefully this works. Fingers crossed. Theoretically, we're now at a point where we're going to assemble the deviled eggs all up. So egg white half, put the filling in, add accessories if they exist, and then shove it in your mouth because you're done and it's time to eat. So here we have them. Personally, I don't know if you can see them in shot, but I think they look a little bit more like bats than devils, but both are festive, so I think it gets the job done. And with something like this is a bit more of a party kind of food, so the important criteria like looks are there, but I feel like most people are like, oh, that's cute, and then shove it in their mouth. So it doesn't need to look amazing. But what I would think is the more important ones is taste, and then kind of quickly followed up by ease of production. So like, can you pump out a bunch of these quickly? Unless you're doing like a small gathering, but these are definitely a little bit complicated because all of that cutting takes some time. Like I only made 5, and I think it took me like 15 minutes. Because it's very kind of precise cutting, and you have to remember like you're doing like mirror images because they're wings. a handful of things. I did find out though, while doing it, the wings, cutting out the little bits of the wings essentially doubles as the horns, so that kind of streamlines stuff a little bit, but overall still kind of annoyingly complicated. I feel like I've seen eyeball deviled eggs, and those will probably be a lot quicker because it's like an olive and I don't know what else, but you kind of can quickly do that. These I just thought were fun with the like deviled eggs aspect of things. A little complicated, so probably wouldn't be a thing I'd make in mass, but in small scale, kind of fun. So now this leads into the taste. We're gonna taste one of these, and that's kind of like the most important one, because if they look rough but taste good, that's still a win. But if they look good and taste bad, it's not really a win. So, well, and if these look rough and taste bad, then that's not good. So let's hope that these taste good, and then I'll call it a win in my book. So let's give them a go. The wingspan is a little wide, so I don't know. You might need to make them a little smaller because this is going to be interesting to fit in. So it might cut a little early if I don't do this gracefully. And for the sake of science, because I'm a man of science and I don't want anybody going home with unanswered questions, I'm going to try another one without the red pepper on there. I'll explain it in a bit. Overall, I'd say they're a winner. They're delicious. However, little caveat, because I did try like with the wings and then without the wings. I would say without the wings is better, because with the wings and whatnot, it just feels like you're eating red bell pepper. Like, you get a lot of crunch in there. The taste is kind of overpowering because there's nothing really insane in these deviled eggs. So they're good, but very kind of basic. So there's nothing really to make it win out over the taste of red bell pepper. So kind of another ding against it in terms of Halloween theme. Like if you're taking it to a party or something like that, like it wouldn't really do well in my opinion there. I mean, people are gonna like how it looks and stuff, and they can pick out the red bell pepper wings if they want. But I feel like you might as well just make deviled eggs and just sell people on that. It's not gonna look like outstanding on the table, but it'll get the job done and people will enjoy it. Good recipe. Obviously this is going out the day before the day of Halloween, so I don't think anybody's like, oh, I would have made that. Yeah, because like you don't have the time, I'm assuming, unless you're real quick, which they don't take a lot of time, so that's kind of like a positive. Well, I should say, they don't take a lot of time to make the deviled egg part. The wings and stuff do take a fair bit of time. And the taste of the red bell pepper kind of knock it down, but the deviled egg itself without that, delicious. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to go enjoy a fair number of deviled eggs. I don't know how many will make you sick, but I'll just do one less than that. Because I have the whole, like, essentially a dozen deviled eggs to consume. And I'm up for that challenge. That is a challenge I'm willing to take. So in recap, to kind of summarize everything, delicious, just remove the red bell pepper. However, that does kind of take away the Halloween themed aspect of things. So not great for like a Halloween party, but tasty to make whenever you want. Yeah, this recipe I'll probably come back to again just purely for the deviled egg aspect of things. Maybe not so much the Halloween theme aspect. And on that note, bye Mom, still not dead. See ya.